Thank you. Being here this evening. At this time, I'll suspend the town council meeting and commence with our Rancho Cerrito Community Facilities. So I hereby call the meeting to order, and Madam Clerk, may I have a roll?
Board Member Bracco.
Here.
Board Member Dahl.
Here.
Board Member Davis.
Here.
Board Member Hicks.
Here.
Board Member Luss.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Egbert.
Here.
Chairperson Murphy.
Here.
And quorum present.
Thank you. Item number 3 is called to the public. At this time, any member of the public is invited to address the district board on any issue which is on tonight's consent agenda or any issue which the district board can lawfully act upon at a future meeting. Pursuant to the Arizona open meeting laws, the district board may not discuss the items, but individual members of the district board may respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the district board, may ask staff to review the matter, or may ask the matter to be placed on the future agenda. I don't have any speaker cards for the Rancho Cerrito Community Facilities District. If anybody would like to address this would be the time. Seeing no movement, I will declare the call to the public closed and move on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda, and I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Being no more further business, we'll adjourn the Rancho Cerrito Facilities District meeting, and I will hereby call the Quail Creek Facilities District meeting to order. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Board Member Bracco.
Here.
Board Member Dahl.
Here.
Board Member Davis. Board Member Hicks.
Here.
Board Member Luss.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Egbert. Here. Chairperson Murphy.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thanks. We are to item number 3, which is called for the public. At any time, any member of the public is invited to address the district board on any issue which is on tonight's consent agenda or any issue which the district board can lawfully act upon in a future meeting. Pursuant to the Arizona open meeting laws, the district board may not discuss the items, but individual members of the district board may respond to criticism made by those who address the district board, may ask staff to review the matter, or may ask it to be placed on the future agenda. I don't have any speaker cards for the Quail Creek Facilities District. Anyone like to address the board? Seeing no movement, I will declare the call to the public closed and move on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Having no more business for the Quail Creek Community Facilities District, we're adjourning that meeting, and we'll commence with our regular meeting. And Madam Clerk, may I have a roll?
Councilmember Bracco.
Here.
Councilmember Dahl.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Hicks.
Here.
Councilmember Luss.
Here.
Vice Mayor Egbert.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Present.
Quorum present.
Thank you. Tonight, we have 3 proclamations and 1 recognition. The first one, I will declare November 30th, 2019 as Small Business Saturday, and urge residents of our community and communities across the country to support small business and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Next, I will be presenting a proclamation and recognizing and supporting 2019 the YMCA Community Military Ball to Mr. Mike Broussard, and I'll be coming down and joining you down there. Push left and away. So I'll read the proclamation, and if you'd like to say a few words afterwards, feel free to do so, okay? Whereas the YMCA has provided support and services to members of the United States Armed Forces and their families for more than 150 years, including operating field hospitals in the Civil War, providing 90% of the social services during World War I, and operating the USOs during World War II. And whereas the YMCA has been providing programs and services to active reserve, retired military, and families, and whereas many families within the town of Sahuarita have family members that have served in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, and whereas the town of Sahuarita recognizes the long-standing record of services provided by the YMCA to military servicemen and women and their families, whereas numerous businesses, government agencies, and charitable organizations in our community provide support to military servicemen, women, and families. Whereas the 2019 YMCA Community Military Ball will be utilized entirely to enhance, extend, expand access for military families to YMCA facilities, programs, and services at branches throughout our communities. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Tom Murphy, the mayor of the town of Salarito, on behalf of the town council, recognize and support the 2019 YMCA Community Military Ball, which will allow the YMCA of Southern Arizona to provide services and programs to members of the military, veterans, and their families. And testimony whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause to be affixed the seal of the town of Salarito on this 12th day of November, 2019. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I think we'll grab a picture.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, the public here, we're pleased to be doing our fourth event. And it's a real passion. I wish Priscilla was here. She kind of started this. Priscilla Storm, my wife, and Curtis Dawson, but one is working and the other is working and I'm working, but I'm having the best night. So just to let you know. So next Friday at the 162nd, the Morris Air National Guard Base, we're holding a celebration. And this year, we thought it was, it's to take and to recognize our National Guard, you know, the reserves that are there that come on the weekends, their families, and of course the employers, because our reserves couldn't do what they do without the employers. So we're having a small event at the Air National Guard Base at the 162nd, where it's really just kind of finger foods, and then a small program, but an important program. We'll have Brigadier General Andrew McDonald, who is the commander of the base, will be the host. And then Major General Mick McGuire, who's head of the military for the state of Arizona, under our governor, will also be talking about the importance of the reserve, the Guard, and particularly the families that support them and the employers that do it. Over the past 3 years, in 3 events, we've raised over $300,000 net. Every penny has gone to military families for YMCA services. This summer, we sent over, I think it was 251 kids of military families to the Triangle Y camp for a week. And that's a time when they can, mom and dad can have respite care. But it's more about teaching them honesty, respect, integrity, and responsibility. And those are the 4 core values of the YMCA. So we're really proud of that. But I'm proud that for the last 2 years I've served as the honorary commander, base commander for, wing commander, for the 162nd. They deserve our recognition. They're the 2nd largest Air National Guard in the country. They have strategic missions that we don't know about that happen everywhere. They fly 74 F-16s, for instance. They're training 3 different countries right now, allied countries, their pilots. They run the Predators on the border, and they are always got 2 birds ready to go to defend our country. Can't happen without our communities. They're in our backyards. They coach baseball. They're in FFA. They're Little League, basketball, and so forth like that. And we don't recognize our Guard and our reserves enough, and that's what this year's event is doing. So first of all, thank you, Mayor and Council, for your continued support. And I'm just so excited about, you know, continuing to support our military. One last thing, little history. Where did the GI Bill originate from? The YMCA. Yes, after World War I, the first military scholarships to go out to our military and our veterans came from the YMCA, and then the scholarships in that fund was modeled after the YMCA. So we go way back, and if anybody know Walt Whitman, poet, he was a field nurse for the YMCA during the Civil War. Pretty cool, huh? There were 4,000 field nurses in Civil War and 26,000 volunteers in Europe, YMCA volunteers during World War I. So I am proud to be in an organization that has that background and to continue to serve military families, because if they're part of our community, we are a military community. So thank you, everybody.
Next, we have a presentation, Captain George Grove with the Arizona Rangers. Would like to recognize Commander Eddie Lopez of the Sahuarita Police Department, who was named Honorary Ranger by the Arizona Rangers Board of Directors. Could Captain Grove and if the other Rangers want to line the screen, you gotta come on up and Officer Lopez will be following. And Eddie? So while we pass it down. So we would like to say a few words.
Good evening. My name is Rich Lockery. I'm the Deputy Commander, State Commander of the Arizona Rangers. First thing I'd like to do is apologize for our Colonel, Mike Droll, who has business elsewhere, as we always do every day. But we're here to present an award to your Commander, Eddie Lopez. And this award, I want to say, does not go out very often to very many people. As a matter of fact, the Commander will be joining a group that includes our Governor, who is also an honorary Ranger for the state. He is also our Chief Ranger. So we appreciate very much all the support that the police department has given us in the training and working on several duties. And I also would like to thank the Chief for he disappeared. So on behalf of the Arizona Rangers, I'd like to present this award to Commander Eddie Lopez for being an honorary Ranger within the Arizona Rangers, the state of Arizona.
We'll be able to roast it when it's a little while.
Tom, you want to invite all of them into the picture and get one?
Absolutely, yes, squeeze in. I would say the short people to the front, but I'm not gonna do it.
We always do. Go ahead. Unless you can't stand up again.
Okay, Rich, you're gonna have to move your head just a little bit there for everybody. Got it.
And Captain Williams, I think you have a couple of words on the presentation.
To kind of go along with that certificate, we've got a plaque that, we all have to have something to hang on the walls. If you've got a wall to hang on, I don't have that anymore, since I'm kind of retired, but that's okay. The main thing I want to mention here is that as the Arizona Rangers, we're really only able to be recognized when we do things. And sometimes it's really hard to fit into some of these government organizations when you're doing things like police work. Our primary mission is to assist police organizations, whether they're federal, state, county, or local. We've been very fortunate, and most of that comes, I believe, from Commander Lopez, is that we get to interface so much with the Sahuarita PD. That gives us a chance to show what we can do and how effective we can be, and let other organizations see that. We've been in existence for a long time. Our original Rangers go back to 1901, and they disbanded in 1909. 1957, those original Rangers started the group that we are today. So we've been in existence about 62 years doing this type of stuff. It's stuff that we enjoy doing. We enjoy helping the community. We don't do just police work. We help community do whatever they need. If somebody in the community needs traffic control or help with an event, whether it's a car show or any of that, things of that nature, we're ready to step up and do that. So all it takes is people to know we're around and do that. And again, like I say, Commander Lopez has been a major player in us getting our faces out there in the community. So we've got a plaque here for him. Normally this plaque has the honorary badge on the top, but he managed to get that several months ago, and I couldn't get it back. I think he thought maybe if he gave the badge back so I could put it on here, we'd change our mind, you know, but that wasn't the case. So what we have here today is not the original, a replica of the original Arizona Ranger badge on this plaque, okay? So we want to present this to the commander.
Mayor, Council, I'd like to go ahead and say thank you to the Arizona Rangers for their immense assistance. They're very instrumental in assisting us with our town events. A little known fact is that they also are one of the chief fundraisers for our Shop with a Cop program and assist us every year. So I really thank you from the bottom of my heart. Deputy Chief Lockery, thank you for coming down from Phoenix. Master Sergeant Booth, thank you. Deputy Commander, thank you. And I thank the Madeira Company immensely. Thank you so much. For what an
I agree, I know it's honoring the commander, but, you know, thanks to the Rangers. And last year, when I couldn't get a ride with our PD in the White Elephant Parade, I got a ride on a motorcycle with the Rangers. They even gave me a white hat. So that was really cool. Thanks for all that you do for our community. Next, we have a proclamation, on behalf, or honoring Marcus Junior Cook. We do a lot of these, and look up, good to see you, sir. How you been? I remember they were lighting the Christmas tree last year. And, you know, Chaplain Blevins talked about, you know, a great community and how we come together, and this was one example of this, last year, and how the community came together and celebrated Christmas early, and a lot of the people, you know, didn't know, and came together, and the chief and I had the honor, you know, to stop by the house and make her an honorary chief and an honorary mayor. I think he's probably much more excited about being an honorary chief than being an honorary mayor, but, you know, it was very, exciting to be there and to see the community and the choirs from the high school singing Christmas songs. So, whereas Marcus Junior Cook was a beloved citizen who inspired the community of the town of South Rita, and whereas at a young age, Junior lost his father on December 23rd, 2018, and whereas Junior enjoyed playing at the Los Arbalos neighborhood parks, and whereas the Rancho Rita community has come together to dedicate the Los Arbalos Park Playground in honor of Junior. And whereas on November 30th, 2019, in honor of Junior's favorite holiday, a Christmas-themed dedication will take place from 5 to 7 p.m. And whereas the town of South Rita would like to commemorate and celebrate the life of Junior. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Tom Murphy, Mayor of the town of South Rita, on behalf of the town council, do I hereby proclaim November 30th, 2019 as Marcus Junior Cook Day, in testimony whereof I hereunto set my hand and call to fix the seal of the town of South Rita on this 12th day of November 2019. Next, we move to item number 6, which is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we have the agenda for this evening. Next, we have item number 7, which is call to the public. At this time, any member of the public is invited to address the town council on any issue which is on tonight's consent agenda or on any issue which the town council can lawfully act upon at a future meeting. Pursuant to Arizona open meeting laws, the council may not discuss the items, but individual members of the council may respond to criticism made by those who address the council, may ask staff to review the matter, or may ask the matter to be placed on a future agenda. And I have 2 this evening. We'll start with Rick Wilkeny this evening.
Mayor, council members, my name is Rick Wilkening. I live over at Rancho Resorts, and I wanted to bring to your attention something that has been under the radar for the past few months. Arizona State Senate Bill 1531. This legislation was introduced by State Senator David Farnsworth, and in Section L, the legislation restricts HOAs from using coupon books, as they have done for decades, and requires the mailing out of monthly invoices along with an updated monthly statement. The requirement of the monthly statement and invoices becomes an additional financial burden to the communities that are identified as homeowner associations. In the case of Rancho Resorts, where I live, the additional cost of these requirements comes to a total of $20,000 next year. To those individual households, the cost of $2.84 per house per month. When you consider that Rancho Resorts only has a little over 500 homes, what is the additional cost of the homeowners to Rancho Sahuarita? The answer to that question is $185,000 next year. This money's not going to schools, it's not going to the homeless or ensure that the city's better off. No, this money's going to paperwork, just paperwork. There's no reason for this legislation to inflict this kind of financial damage on these organizations that promote better communities by raising standards. So ask yourself, what else would Rancho Sahuarita do with $185,000? The real question that comes along with this legislation is, are HOAs going to have to raise monthly assessments to pay for this? And that becomes a burden on the individual homeowners, your constituents. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. I've contacted our elected officials, all of them, but we didn't pay for this. Need to make you aware of that, and appreciate anything you can do to kind of bring them around to the real kind of thinking. It starts January 1st. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Next, we have a new member in our community, David Jones. Would you come up and introduce yourself and tell us what you do for fun all day long?
Good evening. I gotta say how impressed I am with this town. I'm losing my voice, so sorry about that. Just in the last 30 minutes. Wow. Who would not want to live in this town? It's amazing. We had the chaplain lead us off in prayer, a young man give us the Pledge of Allegiance, a couple proclamations that were heartfelt and heart-fulfilling, and the Arizona Rangers recognizing our police force. So I think that's great. What a great town to live in. My name is David Jones. I'm the new general manager over at Quail Creek. I consider myself as the town manager, just like here. Our town, Quail Creek, has many amenities, a restaurant, pickleball courts, tennis courts, common area, and it's a great place to live. And I have a board of directors, which would be like the council members here, and a board president, who would be the mayor, and I help manage their town. I have been there since the end of September, and I gotta say, just impressed with this town. Since I've been here, everyone's been warm and welcomed me to this town, and I'm just amazed. So Mayor, thank you for having me come up here tonight and say hello. And Gil, thank you as well. And all of you for putting a great impression on me, someone new to this area. I'm pretty boring compared to what happened today, so I apologize for that, but thank you again, all of you, for welcoming me to your town. I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you.
David, could you arrange a little reduction in the assessment for me? Oh, no, all right.
No, sir.
And that's all the speaker cards I had. Anybody else like to address the council tonight? Seeing no movement, we'll declare the public closed. Now we come to council and town manager summary of events. Mr. Udall.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just have a couple of things. And if I begin to give a report and you intend to give that same report, just shut me down in some way and I'll...
No, we'll just say ditto afterwards.
Always happy to defer to the council on the report, but I did want to brag just a little bit on the Spooktacular. This is such a great event for the town. We continue to have, I don't know the exact count, but my guess is we had over 10,000 people attend this event. In fact, it's getting so large now that we overran the school and we had to move to a different venue. That brought us to Town Hall. And this is a big complex, and yet it's beginning to get too small even for this event. So we're, once again, probably going to be looking for a future event, which, by the way, we're going to be bringing up next council meeting. We hope as a preview to what will happen at that council meeting, we're going to be bringing the Catalyst project to the council for your consideration on the Sahuarita district. So that could end up being the bigger place to have an event such as Spooktacular. But it was such a great event, and we had a lot of good partners with us on that event as well. Speaking of events, we're already planning then for our next one, which will be our Winterfest. Again, right here at the Town Hall complex. That'll be on December 14th. So I want to put a little bug in everybody's ear to make sure they attend this event. But that'll be from 6 to 10, again, here at the complex. A couple of new things. We will have some ice sculptures to gaze at. Also, the garden area will be lit this next year, in December, and with some decorations out in there. I believe that we're going to have, we're trying to pull it together. We'll see how it turns out. There may be a little bit of snow over our ice skating rink that really bring in the winter feel here in the desert. So we invite everybody to come to that event as well. Wanted to give an update. I'm constantly asked by Councilmember Lusk and others about what's happening with the Verizon tower that's over there by Quail Creek. It's been delayed a little bit longer because the fiber optic line has been delayed. So that's expected to be delivered this week, and then they need a couple of weeks to kind of pull it together. Bottom line is they're now saying that early in December that tower should be operational. So let's keep our fingers crossed on that. Of course, that's very important to get more bars out in that Quail Creek area particularly.
It's also important because the pickets are getting closer to my house.
And bars, you mean, single bars, not David.
Good clarification. Also, I wanted to announce that we do have on our website, on the online forums, a new form that you can go to ask a question. And you pose your question, and then staff will get right back to you with an answer to that. And that'll be posted then for others to see as well. So, for example, I very well might see the question, well, what's going on with the Verizon tower? And you can go online, for those that weren't at the meeting tonight, and see the answer that I just gave to the council. But We continue to look for different ways to communicate with our community, and this is just one more way. And my thanks to Councilmember Dahl, who brought this to my attention, that maybe this could be an opportunity, and it is. And so I invite the council as well as others to go on there and ask your questions, and if you can stump us. With that, that's all my report.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have one,
Yes.
real quick.
Yep.
I wanted to thank the staff for the Chalk Festival, Parks and Rec. I was able to attend that with my children, and all had a lot of fun with the chalk and decorating the area. The artists that were coming that did the different artwork there with chalk were spectacular. They were just amazing. I walked that park frequently, the lake, and it was wonderful to have all of those scenes along the way, and the additions that were done before they even started. Just all around, wonderful, beautiful day to be outside and be around all the residents of the street. Yeah, just spectacular. I hope that continues. That was a really great day.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just one, the Green Valley Rotary Club, one of them is beginning to look at Sahuarita in terms of a Rotary Club. There's a small group of us that will be meeting and discussing that and trying to bring the Rotary Club here to Sahuarita. And that would probably be sometime early next year.
Great, thank you for the great organization. Bill?
I just wanted to mention, we had the strategic planning retreat last month, and I've been involved in those as an employee, and I dreaded them. That was actually a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I hope the employees did. It was interesting for me to hear their perspective on some of those issues. And it was a fun 2 days.
Get you a hobby.
Well, I'll piggyback off of that. No, I thought the facilitators were really good. And thanks for the shout out to Spooktacular, Park and Rec, Common Ground, Rural Metro, Green Valley Electric. There's so many partners that help make that happen. And again, that's what I think our community is a lot about. I couldn't attend the Chalk Festival, but I saw a lot of great posts on there, and the precision and artistry, it's really amazing what they could do.
I had a very sad 8th grader that didn't win.
Uh-oh.
She was really hoping for $100, but there was an amazing artist out there. It was really spectacular.
Absolutely. And I wanted to thank the town staff. Started about 5 years ago, the Southern Arizona Construction Career Days. A lot of folks, I think, realize a lot of the kids aren't going into the trades and haven't been going into the trades for a long time. And the average age of the folks in the trades industry is about 55. So there's a lot of folks retiring and not really a lot coming in. They started this event down at the rodeo grounds a few years ago, 2014, and they only had 700 students. This year we had 2,800, and they actually capped it. They could have gone over 3,000, but it was such a huge growth. They were worried about controlling it, and I know Heidi was there and some of other staff members, so really appreciate that visibility. And belated Veterans Day to those who have served. When I went to an event down at the Green Valley Mortuary, which is in the town of Sahuarita. Just want to make sure everybody knows that. KGVY, the group that was going to run it, had disbanded and no one knew it. So KGVY had picked it up with about a week's notice, and I was the guest speaker. But when I drive down Sahuarita Road and part of Rancho Sahuarita Boulevard, just again thanks to Boy Scout Troop 365, when you see the American flags flying on those special holidays, and they've been doing that for a number of years. And it started, I think, as an Eagle project, and now they've continued the tradition. Again, I think it's one more thing that sort of separates us. So.
And from a mother that took her 2 scouts to that, they start early on Veterans Day morning.
Yes, and great kids doing wonderful things in the community. That's all I had. Any other councilors? Next, we move to item number 9, which is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda has been approved, and now we come to item number 10. Madam Clerk, that's a long one.
Presentation, discussion, and adoption of resolution number 2019-0611. 1, providing for the sale and execution and delivery pursuant to a Series 2019 wastewater system revenue trust agreement of wastewater system revenue refunding obligation in one or more series evidencing proportionate interest of the owners thereof in installment payments of the purchase price to be paid by the town of Sahuarita, Arizona, pursuant to a Series 2019 wastewater system revenue purchase agreement to refinance costs of certain improvements to the wastewater system of the town. 2, authorizing the completion, execution, and delivery with respect thereto of agreements necessary or appropriate as part of refinancing such costs of such improvements to the wastewater system of the town and paying related financing costs. 3, delegating to the mayor, the town manager, and the finance director certain authority with respect to the purposes hereof. And 4, authorizing the finance director to expend all necessary funds therefore. And 5, authorizing the authorized representatives to take all other actions necessary for the consummation of the transactions contemplated by this resolution and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mr. Mariotti is going to be presenting this item, and I think introducing a couple of folks. AC?
Hey, AC, could you say that in English?
I'm working on it. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you. This will hopefully provide us an opportunity to save some money for the town, save the town. But most notably, the wastewater enterprise fund. So that's why we have this really long resolution, because it's really worth a lot of money here. But this December will mark 10 years from our last drawdown on our WIFA 2008A system revenues loan. And that's noteworthy because the loan provisions that we have require us to wait 10 years after our last drawdown before we have an opportunity to even refinance the debt. So that's what we're bringing forward to you today. So as part of that effort, we analyzed 5 different refunding scenarios and settled on one that would actually extend the debt term by 3 fiscal years, so extending it out to fiscal year 2031, and would utilize the $2.8 million that we currently have set aside in our WIFA debt service reserves and a rate stabilization fund. Instead of keeping that money set aside, we would actually propose to use it as part of this refinancing arrangement, roll it into the new debt, and basically buy down on the principal. So refinancing those principals would be a good thing and save us more money by doing that. Excuse me. This particular scenario provided the best overall results with respect to our expected net present value savings. So we analyzed all of the 5 scenarios. And this one didn't provide the most savings, but it was second most savings. It was so close to the first one, but because of these other elements of the financial arrangement, we felt that this was still the best scenario. Those other elements included, gave us the highest annual cash flow savings. It would allow us to pay back on our interfund loan with the general fund more quickly than some of the other proposals, and I know that's very important to the town. And it also reduces the severity of future user rate increases. So we want to keep those rates as low as we possibly can while still meeting our financial objectives as outlined in our 10-year wastewater financial plan and rate study. So this one kind of met that sweet spot of all the scenarios that we analyzed, where it gave us lots of savings, more payback to the general fund, and the lowest possible rates while still meeting all those objectives. So with that in mind, on November 1st, we issued a request for a proposal and term sheet that was, and we sent it out to various financial institutions throughout the country, enlisting bids from those banks, and the responses were due today. And so with that, with respect to the financial information, I'll turn it over to Mark Reeder, who works at Stephen Nicholas, to give you an update on this.
Welcome, Mr. Reeder.
Thank you, AC, and, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Is this on? Can you hear me okay? Thank you, and thanks for having me down. AC did a great job of summarizing the transaction. Back in 2008, as you all know, he spent about $30 million to build a pretty significant wastewater treatment plant. You were essentially a startup community. Wastewater treatment plants are not cheap. The town had to borrow money from WIFA back in 2008, about $30 million roughly. I think it was a little more than that between the two. And when you entered into that loan agreement with WIFA, you borrowed money at about 3.73%, as you recall. They made you put into a savings account about $2.8 million. It's been sitting there the last really 8 or 9 years. It was there in the event there was an issue, a major financial issue with the town, which never really happened. Your town grew up, your management team grew up, you added customers to your enterprise system, and it's done very well. So when AC and I started talking about this, it was my viewpoint that, let's go ahead and refinance this out. As you all know, we're in a very low interest rate environment, we're at historical low rates. Can we lower the rate by 1.25% to 1.5%, and also release the $2.9 million, $2.8 million back to the town? And so, we were able to accomplish that. We just got the bids in today, we got 5 bids. AC and I will be evaluating those over the next few days, and we'll enter into negotiations with the winning bidder with really the goal of trying to lower down the bid that they gave us as best we can. So the long and the short of all that is that it looks like you're gonna lower your payments from about $2.1 million a year, as AC said, down to about $1.3 million. You're gonna save about $800,000 per year. We're only gonna extend it 3 years, as he said, okay? Back then in 2008, WIPA kind of pinned our cities and towns into a real short amortization. You were not the only city or town that did that. It put significant rate pressure on our utilities. And so about 8 years ago, we went to the legislature and got that changed. So what you're doing here, by extending out really only 3 short years, is you're extending the average life of your debt more evenly with the average life of your asset. So it makes a lot of sense. And the town's gonna save about $3.3 million in cash flow, which is good, including that $800,000 per year over the next several years. And your present value savings is $660,000 roughly, which is a 4% number. Generally, anytime we get above the 3% number, it shows you that's very, very efficient. So to do a restructuring like this in a low interest rate environment and giving you back that cash, I really think created a win-win scenario for the town. So as your financial advisor, I would recommend that you move forward. As you know, you're delegating the authority to town manager and staff and AC, and we'll work hard together to do our best to get the rate down lower to maximize the savings. So I hope that was helpful in addition to what AC shared with you, and I'm glad to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Any questions to my right? Mike, obviously, thanks for all the hard work on, we can save that kind of money. Anytime we can save that kind of money, I think, obviously, I'm in support of it. Especially if we can hold the rates for our customers, to the lowest possible level, and rate increases to the lowest possible level. So I really, appreciate everybody's work. I noticed the FIAC committee, I know they couldn't get together, but they also, recommended it as well, and I know it's a great team that AC works with, so, thanks for all. If not, if there are any more questions, or?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move to adopt resolution number 2019-0611, and that an emergency declared that this resolution shall take effect immediately.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you
Mark,
for your-
may I just say to you and AC, it's just delightful to having a financial team such as we have here in Quail Creek. Sorry. In Santa Rita, and you really do an outstanding job for us, both of you. We really do appreciate that, which includes the little hamlet of Quail Creek. Thank you.
After what I heard tonight, I might move out to Quail Creek.
Good night, everybody. Good night, Mike. Thank you. Now we move to item number 11, Madam Clerk.
Presentation and discussion regarding an update on Quail Crossing Extension Phase 2 prepared by Summit Inc.
Thank you, and Ms. Abramovitz will be doing the presentation, and as a reminder, this is a presentation only, but we can have discussion.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Council, Mr. Manager. Actually, Alejandro Angel with Summit is here to do the presentation for us. As you all remember, one of our capital improvement projects for this year is the design of the continuation of the Quail Crossing extension. Somas is our consultant who is in the process of designing that, so we're here tonight to give you a brief update on where we are on that project. So I'm going to let Alejandro take it. 'Cause I think it's a good idea. Thank you. 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 T
Thanks for being here tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Mr. Mayor, council members. And by the way, I've been lucky enough to have worked with the town since 2003 on Nogales Highway, locking out a Pima mine, a lot of projects, so thank you. But today we're talking about Cloud Crossing Boulevard. The picture you see there is one I'm assuming you're familiar with, is the first phase of the Cloud Crossing extension, and where it ends at the Anson trailhead. What we're looking at is the next phase of that project. And maybe in the way of background, I know everybody in the council knows this, but maybe for the people in public, the idea here is a project that's been in the books for a long time to connect Nogales Highway to Old Nogales Highway, so that people of Claw Creek and Madera Highlands, that eastern part of the town, can connect better to the town. Today they have to go more than 3 miles out of their way to get there. So it's an issue of, just quality of life, emergency services, frankly, just the whole cohesion of the town, and maybe even some additional tax revenue if we can get people to go to that shopping center in Nogales Highway instead of the one in Continental Road. So that's sort of the big picture. Again, with phase one being done, we're looking at the next phase, and what you see on the monitor is, at the top, you see the end of phase one. On the bottom right, you see Old Nogales Highway. This was the alignment that was originally selected back in 2009 or so. And back then, all that, I believe, was Robeson-owned land. Things have changed since, and a lot of the land is owned by Pima County Wastewater for their wastewater treatment plant. So when we started looking at it, we decided that that was not very efficient because it would require land exchanges, additional permitting, more stakeholders, that probably just make for a longer project. So what we decided to do is to revise the alignment, and the line you see in orange there is now straighter, slightly shorter, but the biggest benefit is really it all goes to Robeson and completely avoids wastewater and any potential impacts on it. So that's the alignment we're looking at right now. What we were tasked with in terms of the original approach was to do a roadway. We need to get a roadway in as soon as possible. So even if it was a temporary roadway that crossed the Santa Cruz River at grade on a dip crossing. So we started doing some research on how we could do that. And one of the first things we did was look at stream flow gauges on the Santa Cruz River, and found out that if we did this type of crossing, over the last 5 years, the river would have required closure of the crossing about 20 times a year, 20 days out of the year. We also interviewed Pima County and the city of Tucson. They have similar crossings at Camino de la Tierra, Tanque Verde Wash, CDO at Overton, several crossings. And to get an idea of what it means for them in terms of maintenance, they all said they spent money on every crossing, or on every rain event, for barricades, for equipment to get debris removed from the crossing, and that's without counting staff time. So they estimate about $5,000 every rain event, and again, we have 20 of them a year. They also talked about having to do pavement improvements every 5 or 10 years, major improvements. And probably one that was significant to us, and will lead us to the next slide, was the need to do swiftwater rescues fairly often. Once a year, I think that's fairly often. So, and that's actually with washes that run less frequently than the Santa Cruz. So, what we tried to do then, and by the way, it's coincidence that this picture actually has water in the Santa Cruz. But what we did is figuring out how could we have a flood warning system to let people know that there's going to be water in the river. And we did find a few challenges because of the way the Santa Cruz River is and being larger than the other water courses. One of them is that we were requiring a lot of gauges because it doesn't have to rain in Sahuarita or Nogales for Santa Cruz to run. If it rains in Madera Canyon or near the mines, the wash can run when it's not running at Continental Road. So what you see there is where we looked at adding stream flow sensors to warn us when a flood's coming. We'll also, if you can read that, you probably can't, but one of the sensors there has 16 minutes. So that's the most warning we would get if water was running on that wash. That's not enough time really to get, emergency services and public works staff to close the crossing safely, reliably. We also talked to Pima County about whether, they already have a big, alert system, for managing these type of events, if we could connect to their system. And they had similar concerns that they couldn't transmit the data in a sufficient time frame to be effective, so they would not allow us to connect to their system. They had no issues if we decided to proceed this way, but we would have to set up our own system from scratch, or the town would. And then, in addition to that, we had some engineering challenges in terms of a big, sewer line that goes to the wastewater plant, and the fact that we would need permitting for grading in the wash. We would have to cut significantly on the banks on either side of the wash to get down to the bottom of the Santa Cruz. So that's, those were some of the issues we saw in the original approach. So we set out to identify an alternative for that, for this project. And here's what we came up with. And I'll explain what it is and then what it means. We're calling it a low flow bridge of the Santa Cruz. If you look at the color picture on the bottom left, that shows that when there's a major storm event, the Santa Cruz runs more than a mile wide. That's not something we can address with, the budget that's available and the time frame that we need to. But we can, if you look at the blue, that's the deeper portion of the Santa Cruz. So the colors represent depth. The water flows within that channel, is contained within that channel in most events that come every 5 years or less. So what we're proposing is a bridge that can span that channel. And you can see the white line that we drew on the picture there. That's the length of the bridge. So it would be a 200-foot long bridge, not a huge bridge by any stretch. And what it means is, in events that happen every 5 years or less, the water would flow under the bridge unimpeded. In a bigger storm, we would still have to close the bridge, but the bridge is designed in such a way that it would not wash away. It would stay in place. We might need minor repairs to the approaches, the embankment, but that would be it. So that's the idea, and I'll explain why that's beneficial. One is, looking at the rain gauges, or the stream flow gauges in the Santa Cruz at Continental Road, we would not have had to close that crossing at all over the last 5 years. There could have been one event, or maybe two, but it would be a lot more rare than the alternative. So that reduces maintenance significantly. It also means that, so instead of 20 times a year, once every 5, that's 100 times less. Residents get disrupted a lot less than they would have otherwise. Public safety risks go way down. And actually, long-term maintenance costs, the county would allow us to connect to their alert system because they feel that this would provide more advance notice. No single wash could trigger a flood over the bridge unless the main channel of the Santa Cruz was also running. So the only thing would be a major regional storm, not a localized storm. And I think one thing that we found is that the cost is not significantly higher for this bridge, not for the ultimate bridge, but for this bridge, the cost is not significantly higher than the dip crossing. Because we save on all the grading that we would have to do in the wash and all the maintenance, and I'll show you what the difference is. It really comes down to about $800,000 between the bridge and the dip. I want to make sure everybody understands this is not the permanent solution for this, because as I said, to handle 100-year events, you would need a bridge that's much larger. You would need to channelize the whole river in this area. So we're talking several tens of millions of dollars to do the ultimate solution. But this could be used for the ultimate solution. It's not throwaway. The bridge would be done in such a way that you can add to it at a later time. And then, just to close with a little bit on cost, the original town budget was $3.8 million for this. That did not include some additional costs we expect, but somewhere around $4 million is what it would have taken. Where we are now is at about $4.8 million, and you can see the breakdown there. The other item we added in black at Beth's request was a multi-use path. There's no multi-use, or there's no pedestrian facilities in this road or bike facilities, and she thought it might be something that could come up for consideration at a later time. So we put a quick number on what that might cost to get it across the bridge and in the area. So that's all I had. I'll be happy to address any questions or ask Beth if I can't answer.
Yes. The way you've got the bridge designed now, it's a free span across with just two abutments, or is there anything down in the?
There's one pier in the wash,
And
so
you've
it's a
got
pier
enough
span.
granite or hard, something to stabilize?
Yes, that would go about 100 feet deep into the wash for scour.
And you had mentioned earlier that all of that potentially could be used, it wouldn't be throwaway if, once we had the ability to expand it.
Correct, you'd have to add more spans and would, but it would be part of a bridge. Yep.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
so when it's, if it's not permanent, and it's, how long do they last?
Well, the bridge itself can last the same as a regular bridge, it can last 100 years. When I say it's not a permanent solution, I mean that most jurisdictions want a bridge that will be all-weather access. So it won't require closures, this will require closures.
And part of our,
But we're not building it in a temporary fashion, it can,
Okay.
yeah.
and part of the town's in-plan, transportation project for the region, it's part of the RMAP that's done by PAG, is the full 4-lane, 100-year bridge connecting, Old Nogales and Nogales. So that would be the final phase.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm really impressed with the plan that you've come up with. It's really a wonderful plan. You know, one of the things I want to point out is that bridge at 1.8 or whatever the cost would be is certainly a lot less than the tens of millions that would require a permanent bridge there of proper proportions. And I would point out that if we don't put this bridge in, we'll never get the other bridge in because, again, it's just simply too expensive for a road of just over 1 mile when we're going to be dealing with the annexation and the infrastructure elsewhere. The fact that we've added in the $300,000 for that will resolve the issue with our bike population, our bikers and others who really have asked appropriately to be able to use that road, and that's going to give them a great avenue to do. And in terms of the cost, given the population that lives over there, that is going to be deflected over into the Walmart Sprouts parking area or shopping area, I'm not at all thinking that there's going to be a real problem with paying for this bridge in a matter of 5 to 10 years in terms of additional tax and other things. But again, I do want to thank you. You've really done a nice job of putting together something that is reasonable given what would be the cost of a major road over there. And I thank you very much.
And I think AC and Mr. Reader, didn't they just save us enough money to?
Mr. Mayor, I wasn't thinking that at all.
Well, you have to give credit to staff and, our consultants are, figuring out solutions for it. And I would concur, if we're gonna do it, the incremental cost, for, pedestrians and bikes and things like that, in my opinion, it's well worth it. I'm just, my own personal life, whether it's furniture or anything, I always regret, if I just had spent a little bit more, I would have been much happier at the end of the day. Not 1.8. Yes.
Well, just one comment, not to be a damn on this, but the one concern I have on this project was not so much the bridge, but I think that picture shows it is, we're gonna be increasing, there's gonna need to be traffic signals on both ends of this project, and those don't come cheap as well.
That's included.
That's included.
That is included.
That definitely includes a signal here, the other end already has a signal, so we're including this signal and some improvements at the tracks.
Okay.
There you go.
Question
Question
I
answered.
see. Any other questions or comments before?
Oh, somebody has.
Oh, if you have, yes, if you,
Just speak loudly.
you come up to the microphone.
Well, I probably can speak loud enough. My question would be, is that multi-use path paved?
Yes.
It would be. It's not part of the project right now, we're looking at considering it.
For the $300,000, it would be paved?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that will be given plenty of consideration, please.
Yeah, and afterwards, if you could just, for the legalness of it, if you could just, submit your name to our town clerk.
Sure.
And the
You won't
comments.
believe it if I gave it to you.
What's that?
Robert Smith.
We still have a lot of rangers back there.
The multi-use path would be a 10 or 12-foot path
Okay, so-
to the side of the road for bikes and pedestrians,
Yes.
two-way.
And
Okay.
golf carts, from what I understand, is what people want. There we go. I just thought those in the audience were wondering what they're asking about.
Great.
Thank you. And
Thank you, thanks Al, thank Kelly for putting all this together, appreciate it. Next we move to item number 12, Madam Clerk, and this is a study session.
Presentation and discussion regarding the evaluation of wastewater management approaches prepared by Carollo Engineering Incorporated.
But similar to the last item, it's for presentation only, but allowing for some feedback and discussion. Ms. Lashen, I think you're leading the effort.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. My name is Heidi Lashley. For those that don't know, I'm the Assistant Town Engineer. I am sick today, so I'm sorry. So today, we are here to discuss the future of the wastewater, and I brought with me our consultant, George Messi from Carollo Engineers, who will actually do the presentation for us. Him and his colleagues have kind of worked and put together all this information, so I'll have him come up and actually give us our findings and the recommendation that we're looking at moving forward from our technical memo that he had put together and kind of regarding the future of wastewater in the town of Sarita. As a little bit of background, our current wastewater facility is a 1.5 MGD facility. Today, we're roughly around 0.9 MGD, so we're kind of at that tipping point of where are we going, expanding where we are today, or some other recommendations that you'll hear in a minute. As the town grows, we all know the needs of our wastewater facility also grow, so we need to explore what our options are. So I'm going to hand it over to George here, who is going to do the presentation, and then talk about the approach, costs, and some of the conclusions and next steps as we embark on the future of wastewater.
Once again, thank you for the opportunity. My name is George Massey, and I'm with Carollo Engineers based in our Tucson office. It's a national consulting firm. So what today's presentation is an attempt to give you a tour of the voyage we've gone on for about the last 6 months with the town manager and assistant town manager and the engineering and financial staff to imagine a very long-term approach and the different options for that long-term approach for wastewater management and in particular wastewater treatment for the town and the surrounding communities. So the outline is a quick purpose of the evaluation, an approach, and scenario descriptions on how we evaluated different options for the long-term management scenarios, how guiding principles and criteria were developed very closely with the town staff to be able to do a comparative analysis of the different scenarios. And also the results of the scenarios, how scoring made it clear what the preferred option as far as a concept would be to pursue into the future. And then a little bit more specifically, I'll go into the recommendations at the end than what you've seen in the meeting package. We'll go into more specifics from the actual tech memo. So once again, the very basic purpose of the evaluation is develop a long-term wastewater management strategy to help achieve the vision in Aspire 2035, the general plan. And while that's only 15 years, we took a look much further than that to the extent of available PAG POPTAC projections for the entire town, the basin study area for your designated management area, and even beyond that, including options that included CPAC. We have the benefit of the POPTAC projections through about 2045 that we used, and also have build-out projections that were developed largely by Pima County in their basin studies. But why is this important, wastewater planning? Well, town residents, of course, are wastewater service customers and ratepayers, The utility services play a key role in future development, always do. And wastewater management is, as you heard in the previous financial presentation, a large investment with long-term implications. And also revenue streams that need to be evaluated as far as alternative approaches. Of course, last but not least, wastewater. Water is water. In the one water environment that most communities are now recognizing, and especially the value of water in all forms. Wastewater is renewable, it's local, it's the only renewable local growing resource in our semi-arid environment, and it will have increasing value. Values are already tangible, there are already markets for instance, for the credits that you've achieved and are accumulating through a water reclamation facility and recharge facility, and those will increase over time. So as far as paths, we wanted to capture a range of potential paths, and that includes kind of a status quo as far as serving Rancho Sorita. The Sorita Water Reclamation Facility serving Rancho Sorita is where you are now. A base element would be to continue serving Rancho Sorita and route excess flows around to Pima County to manage. Another might be to partner with Pima County over the long term, not discounting the value and utility of your and remaining useful life of your reclamation facility, but thinking about the very long term in the general plan beyond, and to build out of the communities, and to find a way to partner with Pima County on a regional facility that's already under consideration, has been for a few years by the county. And then finally, to make sure that we have the whole range of options considered, basically turning over at a specific time, not now, but at the appropriate time, turning over all wastewater management treatment responsibilities to the Regional Wastewater Reclamation Department in Pima County. I'm going to go pretty quickly over the approach and scenario descriptions. This took a couple of months and a lot of coordination and collaboration with staff to fully detail these out and to be able to determine how best to evaluate and compare options. But in a very simple summary, our first step was to actually imagine the scenarios. We defined them in that previous slide, but we had to determine outcomes. What does that scenario look like at 2045 or in build out? As far as service area population, alternate service areas to specific facilities, and also to develop scenario descriptions. We created bullet lists of essentially this is what this end result would look like in the future planning horizon. Secondly, develop a framework for the evaluation. That started with guiding principles, which is a pretty simple part, a very important part, but the rest of the evaluation and the scoring and the results adhere to were those guiding principles, and we'll go over very briefly what those were. Next was to develop evaluation criteria to be able to apply to each of these scenarios and to determine how well they serve the guiding principles of the study and of the town in this respect for wastewater management. Scoring was done, and we'll go over very briefly how the scoring steps were done. Two evaluation criteria really did emerge as the most important. We'll cite those in a moment. And then finally, the scenarios were kind of pitted against each other, using these evaluation criteria in kind of a forced comparison, and one scenario did emerge as the clear preferred alternative for the long term. Again, the first scenario is what I mentioned on a simpler slide before, was baseline, and that's basically your status quo of excuse me, for the water reclamation facility, but following the plan that you have in place right now that's supported by your agreement, your Rancho Sorita agreement. And that includes expanding from 1.5 MGD currently in phases to the ultimate 3.0 MGD or million gallons per day treatment capacity to serve Rancho Sorita. Other flows would be routed around the facility and to Pima County's treatment facilities, whatever those may be. would be consistent with the current rental storage agreement. Another scenario was to limit the Sahuarito WRF capacity expansion and move toward basically limit the useful life, I guess you'd call it, of the facility. Go ahead and invest in the 2.25 MGD expansion, which is really 3/4 on top of the 1.5 that you have. Get the use out of that facility for its useful life, but stop there. And rely on Pima County for flows beyond that 2.25 MGD. And finally, scenario 3, it looks a little more complicated, and it is, but it has a lot more opportunities as well. Town ownership interest in a regional water reclamation facility. That would be a long-term approach. It would start smaller and grow from there. It would not be mutually exclusive with your own water reclamation facility, but it would be the long-term solution beyond its useful life and to serve a broader service area. So in this scenario, like scenario 2, the 0.75 MGD capacity expansion would be the last one, 2.25 for the town's reclamation facility. And during the time between now and when that 2.25 MGD is built and beyond, that would be your time to develop and negotiate a cooperative agreement with Pima County in the design, construction, and operation of a new regional WRF, or water reclamation facility, for a specific service area. And there's no one service area that is required under any local restrictions or anything like that. There's a lot of ability to expand or contract that surface area to serve the town's purposes and also Pima County's long-term plans for everything as far south as Arivaca and as far east as Corona de Tucson, where a regional facility could be served primarily by gravity. And the town ownership, in a reclamation facility, a regional one, would be based on contributed flow. And that could also be based on a percentage of contributed flow to the regional facility beyond what you're already treating at your town facility. And that would be phased over time as well, and in a way that would be negotiated with Pima County for your contributions to capital operations, maintenance, and ultimately replacement costs as well. Excuse me. Down at the bottom of the slide, you can see there's 4 options for service areas. I'll give you a little bit more detail on that. But the service areas that are listed, the smallest one is just the PAG designated management area for the town, and the largest one includes the PAG DMA and CCAP. Pardon me. Excuse me. Scenario 4 is the last one, and this one is the turn it all over to Pima County option, one that needed to be included to cover the full range of options available to the town. In this case, there would be no additional expansion of the Sahuarito water reclamation facility. Guiding principles and criteria was the next step that we worked on with staff. The 4 key guiding principles that were identified and described more fully in the technical memorandum is overall cost effectiveness, of course, fairness and equity, service continuity, including during any transitions from responsibilities for all or part of the wastewater management, and economic development support thereof. The evaluation criteria that were developed for the actual comparison of the scenarios are the ones listed here. Customer service impacts, customer considerations and customer service impacts. And I won't go through all the minor items on the right, but there's a little bit more color commentary there that you can look into. Financial impacts, operational impacts, town and county coordination considerations, and water recharge credits. So this is where it gets a little bit hard to describe what we did over the past few months. But, suffice it to say, there were some spreadsheets involved. There were some decisions, some easy, some forced, to recognize what the values of each of the staff members that were contributing to this process. Which criteria were really the most important, even when pitted against each other. What came out of this pairwise comparison and summing and averaging results and assigning weighting factors, the ones that floated to the top are customer and service level considerations and financial as the driving factors in terms of the evaluation criteria. And once again, a matrix was developed to compare the scenarios for each of those criteria. And there's a lot going on here. I'm not going to go over this, but it's basically the benefits and detriments when comparing criteria across one scenario to another. The criteria that were evaluated and prioritized by staff. Results. Once all the numbers were crunched, there was, sometimes when you go through feasibility studies of any kind, you get a lot of analyses for options that are very similar, and they come out scoring very similar. That didn't happen in this case. It wasn't expected, but the results here got a clear beneficial high score. As you can see, the 23 is kind of arbitrary, but these are all relative scores. For scenario 3. And once again, scenario 3 is the town participation with Pena County in a regional water reclamation facility for long term. And that, I think we've already gone over that means shared O&M costs as well. Some sort of basis on contributed flow over time that will vary. It will increase over time or decrease depending on whose service area is actually growing at that time. And just for an illustrative comparison of what a service area, what does that mean to this kind of program? We developed 4 different ones. So that we call those scenarios 3A through D, but really it's just different sizes of possible service area for a regional plant and population projections both in 2045 and a build out, and what does that mean for flows, cost impacts. So starting with Rancho Sorita, our 3A option is the PAG DMA, Designated Management Area, for Sorita, in the purple. Or that could be a service area. Another service area could grow from there to include the town limits, the PAG and the PAG DMA. The next larger option that we considered was town limits, the PAG and the PAG JTA, which is a joint planning area for the town and for Pena County for wastewater management under the Regionalized 208 plan, Clean Water Act 208 plan. And you can see the table on the left. One more click to go. Our largest service area that was considered included the town limits and CCAP area.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
You didn't include the entire CCAP. What was the reason for that?
Our intention was to include the portion of CCAP that isn't already in someone else's service area.
So you're protecting the Corona service area?
I believe so. But that could be a contributor as well, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because all the water from the mountains to the river runs downhill, and it just seemed like it would be a wonderful gravity system all the way to the river.
Yes.
Plus our ability to rewater the river for a portion.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I failed to mention on this table's the table on the left is based on the 2045 PAG population projection. So this is really only about a 25-year planning horizon. And you can see the growth projected there, significant for each of the 4 planning areas, anywhere from 42,000 to 68,000 service area population. And what that might mean in terms of what would the town's contribution be to a regional plan for this service area, ranging anywhere from 10% maybe to approaching 40%, depending on how it grew. On this slide, the only difference is build out. And build out is when? Nobody knows. It could be 50 years from now, it could be 80 years from now. But these are pretty big numbers, and I think this is where you're seeing all the state land being converted and those types of projections from Pima County's being developed, not converted, from Pima County's basin study. Very big numbers in terms of population, but really the percentages also are bigger, could be a third to even up to 80% for the town's contribution to a plant, depending on what happens with CPAP, largely. Okay, we've got a couple of slides here just for comparison purposes, to illustrate what impacts might be at an individual level, kind of the dollars per person in each service area. A lot of numbers behind these bars, but really what they represent is recognition of the economy of scale when you move toward a regional facility from a smaller town-based only facility. So the last 4 sets of bars that are the lowest are scenarios 3A through 3D, and in comparison, they're all pretty similar because as you go larger with the service area, you have a greater rate base also and a greater revenue base. But they also are somewhat reduced in terms of individual impact than scenarios 1 and 2, where you're not involved in a regional facility. So this is even a little bit more pie in the sky, but water recharge credits. There's no pie in the sky that they exist, and they will continue to be accumulated, and depending on any kind of negotiation results with Pima County you have in terms of their distribution, they have monetary value. For developers, for yourselves, if you ever developed a water utility for the town, or acquired other utilities to combine into one, but they're there as soon as you accumulate them, they're there forever. The market for them is always increasing, and you can actually see dollars being spent, like by the CAGRD, to buy credits like these right now. And you can see over time that can have a positive impact that's not in your cost projections to reduce your costs for the wastewater management cost contribution to the regional facility. So, the recommendations from the study after 6+ months of working closely with your staff is to ultimately limit expansion of the Sahuarita WRF to 2.25 MGD. That's one more expansion. That gives you the space and time that you need also to develop your longer-term plan, and to, if you choose to take that path, to negotiate and consummate it. Initiate discussions with Pima County regarding a joint planning, construction, and operation of a regional facility at the same time. Consider service area options, and that totally depends on what comes out of those negotiations, and maybe some joint updated basin planning that needs to occur with Pima County. They have done their own basin study. It's still draft, I believe, in 2019, in this year, and very interested in your path forward and how you might cooperate. And evaluate options for treated water management. That means primarily your credits, disposition of credits, how they're apportioned, and potential even for reclaimed water use that really was not part of this evaluation. In terms of the recommendations, just a little bit more regarding benefits, and these are in the tech memo conclusion section. For customer service, this ties back again to the criteria that were used in the evaluations, but for customer service, there's benefits in terms of that continuity, that you still have the face of the wastewater utility to your residents and customers. You have some local input for utility rates, I think, that could be negotiated through this approach. And for financial, there's a lot of financial benefits in terms of leveraging resources of both parties, the county and the town. Economy of scale of a regional plant versus a smaller plant. Reduced funding requirements and debt risk for the town with the larger financial base as a partner in a partnership with the county. And near-term certainty with the expansion of the reclamation facility you have to 2.25 MGD. That means also time to develop that long-term path in terms of cooperation with the county. Operational, we also have stability of the current reclamation facility staff for quite a long time. And you have a path toward eventually decommissioning the Sahuarita Water Reclamation Facility over the long term. The redundancy, there's also redundancy of operation. That means right now you have what some people would call a dead-end plant. But sometimes, ultimately, when you get to a regional facility, you have that anyway. But right now you have nowhere for redundancy should there be a catastrophe with that plant. And you have a more resilient system with the ability to bypass that plant to a regional facility in the future. County coordination is another factor, and this path represents partnership rather than competition with the county, and if that works out. And water recharge credits, we've already gone over those benefits. Ultimately, to move down the path of cooperative agreements, this is something that's not new to neighboring cities. There's a lot of cooperative agreements in the Phoenix area. For treatment plants that are jointly owned by multiple utilities, both water and wastewater. There's examples that can be looked at and can help you with your strategy, and you'll need some technical and legal and financial advice in undertaking that kind of activity with the county. With that, we're at the end. That's what everybody's been waiting for.
Thank you. Kelly, before we went, did you want to say anything, raise some questions? I know you had a lot of involvement with it, and I didn't know if you wanted to kind of weigh in a little bit.
I would. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I think for my part, the comments are oriented to why did we commission this study in the first place. And the reason is we have great staff that they know a lot about a lot of things. But we wanted to make sure that we were considering everything when it comes to what is the future of our wastewater treatment service to our community. So it's the reason why we reached out. We were fortunate enough to hire a great firm with bright minds, and this is what they do. They bring that expertise to the table. So as we went through then this exercise with them to examine the universe of options that would be available to the town, this now is the culmination of a lot of that work, and let me tell you, that was a lot of work that went into it, a lot of hours of us looking at these options together. So I feel very comfortable and very good coming to the council now with recommendations that have solid foundations to them. And I think that's what we've presented to the council tonight, is recommendations that have solid foundations. So we're really just asking the council, are we on the right track? This is why it's presented today in a study session type setting, so that we can have a free flow of ideas and comments and make sure that we're headed down the right road here, that we've considered everything that we could possibly consider. We have, again, the experts here to answer any questions that you might have. But we're not done with our journey, of course, because the recommendation is, at this point, to expand our existing plan, but yet to have deeper conversations with the county on what a partnership might look like.
Right. I had a couple questions, but if anybody would like to go
Mr.
first.
Mayor, I actually did have a question. So where are we at with, as far as any conversation with Pima County when it comes to this specific, well, with our study, were they involved with any part of the study? Or are they aware that we're doing the study? Where are we at with that?
So one of the great things that was brought to the table was knowledge about the county. And so I think this is exactly what Corolla brought to the table was, okay, we know where the county's at on things. But we've also had conversations with the county too, to make sure that, an overall understanding of what they have planned for regional plans. And so we've had those conversations with them as well. And I can tell you, we're working very cooperatively with each other, understanding that this could be of mutual benefit to both of us, to the county and to the town. And so I think the future of the partnership, I think, is very bright. Of course, we need to, get in and lock in, and if we go this direction and actually come out with some kind of an agreement on what that looks like. Yeah, so I think that, to answer your question, yeah, I think that we are at a higher level than working with each other, the county and the town. And now that we have this, and we presented this to the council, if this is the direction the council wants us to head in, then we tighter in that conversation with them.
And when you looked at other communities that have done these type of partnerships, have you seen those go awry? Because one of my concerns is, we're having a good conversation, we come to an agreement, life changes, we're 10, 15 years down the road. Because I've watched the city controlling water and the county controlling wastewater, and it seems like it's been a little, it sort of the keys to the kingdom of controlling growth. And where you're not getting along, you sort of lose that independence. But I didn't know if other communities that have done these types of agreements, have any of them gone awry? And you can't predict the future with ours, but.
Mayor, I'm sure if we look far enough, we find one awry. I'm not familiar in Arizona that any that have, and that's where my experience lies in these types of joint facilities. So I think what you described in terms of tension that's always been around ever since the IGA in 1976 with Pima County and City of Tucson, that's not really the same type of thing as far as a joint ownership approach. The most specific one that I can think of is probably Schrag, the Southern Regional Operating Group with the 5 cities anchored by City of Phoenix in operation and joint ownership of the 91st Avenue wastewater treatment plant in Phoenix, a 200 MGD plant, lots of politics, 5 cities, always tension, and 10 years of negotiations to do any kind of renegotiation of their joint agreement. But that's not where you at here. I think with 2 to 3 parties, especially adjoining and serving customers, it's gone fairly well. One example is Greenfield in the East Valley with Chandler Mesa and Gilbert. On the water side, Pyramid Peak Water Treatment Plants with Peoria and Glendale. Glendale actually operates it. But Peoria needs more capacity now, and they're actually paying for an entire 10 MGD expansion of the plant. So there's a lot of flexibility that can occur when in an agreement like this, when one utility needs more capacity at a different time than another also.
That's what I was kind of thinking of, because, if you look at Salrier Road, it's sort of the old pack triangle where all the growth is gonna be. What if it was going simultaneously, and sort of who gets it first and those types of things?
And I think that's where the town can learn from others that have gone down this path, particularly in the state, and types of agreement terms that have allowed them to be agile in that way.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Kelly, I think we've had this conversation before we started entering into this county thing. Everything's gonna come down to the agreement. We're on the right track, there you go. But everything's gonna come down to that agreement. We need to take all the history we can get and make it as bulletproof as possible that prevents anybody but us from controlling our destiny and our expansion.
Well, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
And I guess my concern there would lie also, especially on the financial side of it. Obviously, we've had some bad partnerships before, and, as a town, we do very well fiscally. We have a great finance director, so I can't always say the same, at least in my opinion, for, somebody, for the county. We just do a good job, so I think we have to do our due diligence, as Councilmember Bracco said, to protect ourselves and our town and our constituents and their taxpayer dollars, to make sure that, as he said, review these past partnerships and use them as a building stone to move forward. So, and hopefully, obviously, our finance director to be very well involved in that, so.
And I
But
know-
we do appreciate all the work that you've done and the information that we've got, so at least we have a direction. And I would agree with Bill that we should move forward. This looks like the right path and the right direction to go.
And the other part, I guess, to look at, and, maybe Dan will know a little on that, is I think we're gonna have some legal obligations to serve Rancho Cerrita, and probably the $3 million, gave that comfort, and if we're sort of capping it at 225, and then if the relationship doesn't go well, do we have enough time and protection if we had to bring it back ourselves, to expand and, not get into the ability of, not to be able to serve?
Well stated, and that gets to off-ramps, near-term off-ramps that are protected in the negotiations. Of course, once you actually start building or designing a regional facility, the off-ramps options will be reduced.
Right, and I know that the state has always required a much larger capacity than the actual flows are, and I don't know if there's been any progress. It just seems it's always been very expensive and onerous on what we had to build based on real flows. I know, in the past, we have,
Well, even our current.
yeah, for the current,
Yeah.
I know that, the state hasn't been too amenable to sort of relook at what actually is happening with conservation and low-flow toilets and all those kinds of things, but it just always seems like we unfortunately have to build to a much higher capacity than the reality of life, and many years of proof, that we don't need it, but I don't know if there's any headway we've made as a community or as a state to correct that.
So Mayor, the basin studies will help with that and ability to change, unit generation factors for wastewater based on what's being actually observed in more near term. What hasn't changed is the decades-old criteria for when you have to start designing a building to meet capacity, which, those 80% type, triggers, in your permits from the state go back, to when permits were first established in the 1970s.
Mr. Mayor, that just remind me, so the basic studies that have already been done by Pima County, will we have to redo those, or will those studies, if we decide to partner with Pima County, still be viable and not have, studies always cost tons of money? Yeah, so my question is do those expire, and or could we use that if we decide to partner with Pima County, any of the past, basin studies that they've already done?
My, Councilmember Hixby, my opinion, without seeing the final basin study, because we haven't had access to it yet, is that it covers all of the area plus, even expanding beyond, what's in your, conceptual study from Carollo. It's just a matter of how well it's broken down into subgeographies, and does it serve, the level of detail that you'll need for your contributed portions. So I think it would be more like a adjustment than a review.
And just to give you a little more information, they've actually contacted me and asked for some background on flows that we have today. So I've also given them some information, so that's included in the basin study.
Great.
Thanks. Any other concerns, or you wanna, add in some direction for staff? 'Cause I think Kelly needs some direction on, do we continue on this path? Obviously, there's a lot more to learn, and bulletproof, and all these other things, but, staff I know is looking for some direction, if everybody's comfortable, at least taking it to the next level.
Just a quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
That's more based on timelines. obviously we're looking at the next phase of the current plan. And obviously we don't know what development's gonna be over the next several years. But what kind of timeline are we looking at where, in theory, the trigger's gonna be pulled on the decision? Is this, we talk 2 years, 5 years, 10 years?
We know a little bit about timelines. We know a little bit about timelines. By extending our plan to 2.25, it does put us out toward, I think, around that 5-year mark that design would then need to be starting to take place on a regional plan. Otherwise, it would be sooner. So I think that decision to expand our home plan is critical for giving us more time that we would need to kind of continue to work things through with the county. Now, I want to check over here with my experts to make sure I didn't misspeak on that.
No, that's right. The other thing it gets us to is kind of the upper hand when we start negotiating with Pima County. We're not coming in saying, we need this plant now. It actually gives us time to actually think and go through the whole process versus us being the one that's really in big need of this facility. So we're kind of working at the same pace, or possibly they might need it first.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm not asking for resolution, but my concern is we've got legal issues given Rancho Sahuarita, and I'm certainly hoping that we're going to figure our way through that in order to make this regional plan effective.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's just coming.
Yep. That's what this part is for. Yes.
I think, like everybody said, I think we're heading in the right direction, but I do have some concerns, but I don't think we're gonna have to reinvent the wheel. Other people have done this, so we need to learn from their mistakes.
Right, and, engage deeply, we have the staff to do it, we have the consultants to do it, and obviously, I know Kelly knows that there's concerns along the way that, they'll do a great job reporting back and saying this is going well, or it's not, or this is an area of concern, so, I think you have enough direction based on what you heard to, move forward, I would say.
I do, thank you. I feel comfortable about that too. There is one slide that I want to back up to, and that is the slide on the representative annual cost projections per person.
Yeah.
And I just really wanted to show this one more time because there might be a lot of questions out in our community, what's going to happen to my rate? Those that are hooked into our existing plan. So I want to, I guess, make a statement that we are very cognizant of this issue. This slide is very important because it actually shows the cost per person goes down when you go to a regional plan concept. As opposed to
Upward scale.
Right, to the scenarios where we stay status quo. And so we want to make sure that that's an important message to get out, because we are very cognizant of rate. We're looking at those. We want to make sure that we're doing this for the right reasons, and the right reasons are better service and rate, right?
Right.
So I just wanted to, one more time, emphasize that slide right there. The other one is, and it was, the comment was made that we do have an existing agreement with Rancho Sahuarita, and we will, as always, continue to honor that agreement to make sure that we are serving them for our agreement.
Well, I like the comment you made of, there will always be a built-in off-ramp in case something, goes wrong, that we have the ability to sort of, again, control our destiny if all else fails. So, I appreciate that comment. Any other questions? No? All right, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. And having no further business, we are adjourned. Thank you for coming.